Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 199 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today, I welcomed a singer-songwriter from the DMV area. She goes by the name of Noah Mauriah. I found Noah a couple years ago with her single called Heartbreak Hotel. I've kind of just loosely followed what she's been doing the last few years. This was kind of our really our first real conversation that we've had, outside of DMs, emails, things like that. And it was a very good conversation. She discussed, coming up in music, being involved heavily in choir. I thought it was kind of interesting how she took so many choir classes, especially her senior year of high school. Talked about kind of, falling off of it during her college years and then getting back on a few years ago, where she kind of, decided that she was going to pursue being an artist. We also talked about her most recent single called Outside, the producer that she worked with on that, and kind of the feel for the song and why she chose to drop that last summer. What she's working on moving forward. And we also had a very cool little discussion about the different contrasts between music and other forms of art, and how, art just inspires other art, and how we use that inspiration in our day-to-day lives, and how it's just kind of a big cycle of positive energy, which I thought was really cool. Definitely, going to be looking out for what Noah has coming up here very soon, and I definitely hope we can stay in touch and I can get her back on this show eventually as well. But without further ado, let's get into this one. Well, welcome everyone to episode 199 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest, out of the DMV area, great artist, great singer-songwriter, Noah Mauriah. She's here today. How are you doing, Noah?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. Looking better. I can't complain.
Well, like I said, I'm glad to have you here today. And this is kind of our first real conversation, I feel like, other than just emails and DMs. I feel like I probably discovered you with Heartbreak Hotel a couple years ago. It's probably
yeah.
I don't remember specifically that was the one, but I know that was the song that stuck out to me a couple years ago. So I'm intrigued to know more about you as well, because I feel like we've kind of indirectly supported one another, but we haven't really connected in this way. So to kind of kick it all off, we have the guest give some background. How did you get into music? How long have you been at it? Just some basic info for those that might not know.
Okay, gotcha. So I've always loved music. It's something that not only I'm passionate about, but something that I truly cherish. But I was a choir kid, so middle school, high school, I was in all the choirs I could possibly be in. I just really enjoyed the act of singing and performing. It was always so fun for me. Kind of around high school is when I got serious about it. I think my senior year, all but two of my classes were choir. So I was super dedicated, and I was busy, but I was having fun while doing it. So it was a good time. College is kind of where I strayed away from the act of doing music, to just listening to it, finding new artists, stuff like that. It wasn't until about I would say maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I started to be okay, what's this singing and songwriting giving? Just try it out, just see how it goes, where it takes me, whatever. And it's been really fun. So I've been having fun with it for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So were you, because you said you did choir the majority of high school classes then. So was that an art school? You needed a certain amount of credits, or was that just normal public school and you could do that?
So it was normal public school. I think I for graduation, I did all my classes that I needed in order to graduate my junior year. So when it came to senior year, I could pretty much, take whatever I wanted. I could have had a half day and have less classes, but I love music.
Yeah.
So I was in concert choir with like the lower classmen, like freshmen, sophomore, people like that. I was in the women's choir. I was an aide for my choir teacher. I was in show choir, and I was in chamber choir. So like it was a lot. And I also did like all county, tri-county, and all state. So it was a lot of singing, but it was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say that's kind of a good way to kind of get your chops, you know what I mean, doing it and kind of just getting the practice too. So to kind of have that free time available too, like your senior year, just to go do that, I feel like that was probably super awesome for you and kind of like helped you along the way to get to the point you're at now. And you said obviously like the last 3 years has been you focusing on being an artist again. Was there like a specific moment in time where you made that decision, or it just kind of you got to the point where you were like, I've always loved this and I want to get back to doing it and focus on doing it for myself this time, putting myself out there? Was there a moment, or did it just kind of happen gradually?
So I'll say I wrote my first song when I was still in high school. My mom put me in this program called Studio Me. Shout out to her and Miss Tiffany. But that was like the first time I ever wrote a song. So fast forward to 3 years ago, I was just like listening to that song and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so bad. So I'm like, I sounded like a baby. Like the lyrics were very much like young. And I was like, I'm so different now. I'm in a different place. Let me see what it would sound like if I did it now. And then from that moment on, like the first song I put out on SoundCloud, and I was just like, okay, like words were coming to me. I was like able to just write whatever I was feeling. And it kind of like, I wouldn't say it was a moment. I would say it just happened and I just started rolling with it for real.
Yeah. It's always interesting to look back on like the early works or like the first work you ever did, because you kind of cringe. I feel like every single time, you know what I mean? But it's like you always gotta kind of respect it to an extent, because you always have to start somewhere too. You know what I mean? Like, and I always say that you never just be good at something without starting out being bad at something. You know what I mean? So you kind of gotta like go through the trials of being not so great, and then you end up becoming like what you end up becoming because you keep practicing and keep getting better and better. So to be able to, I actually haven't heard of that one, of you like revisiting the idea and kind of redoing it later on. I usually hear people and they're just like, I would never touch that ever again. Like it was just so bad. But I think that's cool to kind of like give it like an updated version too, which I think is awesome. So I know you've put out what, probably 5 or 6 singles now in total. And the most recent one was Outside, which was last year. So talk about that song, because I feel like that song has like, to me it's still like R&B, but it has some West Coast influence to me and like the sound of it. So like, how did that song come about?
I was searching on YouTube for beats, as I always do, and I just came across this one beat. Shout out to Caleb. The beats are awesome. But it just like gave me a certain feeling. Like I literally felt like I was outside at a cookout with my family. Like that's what I kept seeing. So from there on, I usually come up with the hook first. So I was just like, yeah, we outside. Like we outside. It's getting ready for the summertime. Like it really, like the vision for the video came before any of the words came. So I really just like wrote what I saw. And then as far as like out of that West Coast, I'm glad you said that, because literally Victoria Monet, she has this song called New Love that like, it kind of like inspired what I did with Outside. But it's just that feel good song. You out with your peoples and you're having a good time. And I feel like it was the perfect song because I had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, and even like the cover art, because I think it's what you on like a car, right? That's like the
Yeah.
cover art. And so it just the whole song makes you think about like warm weather and like good vibes and good
Mhm.
times. And every
Yeah.
time I hear any type of West Coast beat like that, I always think
Mhm.
of summertime. Cause like you just think
Yeah,
of
literally.
California, you think of like the nice weather and just good energy.
Top down.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like I think it was you accompanied that. I don't know what the word I'm looking for there, but you embodied that in the song,
Yeah.
for sure, and
Mhm.
definitely captured that
Thank
energy, which
you.
is super awesome. And like, what was the? Let's just say not even for outside, because you kind of just touched on that one, but just
Mhm.
overall, as far as your writing, recording process, or even collaborating at this point of where you're at as an artist, how do you think
Yeah.
it's evolved over the last few
Mhm.
years, especially since you've been putting out music? Has it gotten a little easier to just write a song in a good amount of time and go record it? And like, what is the process like currently for you?
Yeah, so to be honest, like I was telling someone the other day, I don't even feel like it's a process. I go through these like long writer's blocks, and it's so sad because I'm just like, I want to do it, but like nothing is coming to me, and I'm not the type of person to like force anything.
Mhm.
So typically, like I'll be listening to beats, and the actual beat will like influence me. It'll evoke a feeling, and then that's when I'm able to write. Um, and from there, like I'll say the last song that I just like was in the studio for last week. The what was say the hook came to me immediately as soon as I heard the beat, and then it took me a while to like finish writing the first verse and the second verse because I'm like, I don't know what I want to talk about. Like I do, but like you know how the hook is like the general idea, and then the verses you get real
Mhm.
specific. So I'm like, what do I want to sing about? So from there, like I said, the hook comes first, then the verses, and then I go to the studio. When I go to the studio, I like to have everything like already written. I know some people go to the studio and they like, create. They start from zero. Um, but I like to watch my coin. I
Mhm.
like to make make financially smart decisions. So I go in there with everything written. Sometimes like I don't know like what harmonies and backgrounds I'm gonna do, but like I for sure know like the whole song. And then from there, it takes me a while to drop because I feel like all artists we're kind of perfectionists, so it takes me a while to like make sure that it's where I want it to be, that it's to my standards, and then I put it out.
Yeah. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Coffee. Coffee is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit coffee.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that coffee link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. And I feel like the release strategy is sometimes overlooked too with a lot of artists where they just kind of just throw it out with no plan. So I think it's good to
Yeah.
kind of have that plan in place of what you want to do and how you want it to be received
Hmm.
as well. I like that though
Yes.
about kind of just showing up with like a pre-planned, mapped out, thing already in place. Because I feel
Hmm.
like you said, when you're it's a lot different, I think, when you are paying for studio time because you only get a certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
hours and you got to utilize the
Mm-hmm.
time. And
Yeah.
obviously, I don't know like what studio you go to or how many people are there, but they probably have like they're probably booked up pretty far in advance for the most part. So you
Mm-hmm.
would have to
Yeah.
really like utilize the few hours that you have. So I feel like if you come in and you're just like sit down with the producer or the engineer and you're just like, hey, I already have this in mind. Let's just do
Mm-hmm.
these takes and then go from there, and we can probably knock
Yeah.
this out like today, or at least get it pretty close. So I
Exactly.
think that's something to definitely keep in mind for anyone listening that pays for studio time, which is probably a lot of different people out there, especially if you live in like a bigger city or something like that, and you're trying to do those things. And for you, like, are you going to the same studio every time, or have you gone to different studios in the area where you live, or do you keep it consistent, or you just kind of go
Mm-hmm.
wherever you can get in?
Yeah, so I would say like I've been to four different studios. I like to go to the same place every time, but like sometimes, let's say they have an opening, but I don't have anything to record, or on the other end, like I have something to record, but they don't have an opening for when I'm available. Because I'm a teacher, so my time is like limited, and I'm like super tired at the end of the day. So
Mm.
I just have to be really smart about when I go. But I just tried out a new studio the other day. It was called the Hollow Studio in Silver Spring. And it was really nice. I ended up being matched with like an engineer that I had met previously at an open mic. Um, but I'm definitely like looking for a home studio, not my home, but like a studio
Mm.
where I always go to. But because I just like to create some stability in any way that I
Yeah,
can.
exactly. Because I think it's better to have that as opposed to always having to go to different places. You know what I mean? You kind of get
Yeah,
more in the routine and you become more comfortable,
exactly.
I think, with the people at the studio as well,
Mhm.
which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. And are you like because you're probably in Maryland, but are you closer to like Baltimore or DC? Like, where are you at in the area?
I'm yeah, I'm closer to DC. That's where I work, so I'm
Okay.
about like 30 minutes from there.
Yeah.
Baltimore is like it's a good trip from
Yeah.
me, but yeah, definitely in the closer to DC
Yeah.
area.
And I am interested to know because obviously you shouted out one of your producers earlier in the show as well. Are there any collaborators you want to give a shout out to on this episode? People you've been working with from the past, or maybe people that you're working with now, could be in the area or elsewhere?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't collaborated with a lot of people because I'm very like I don't know. I'm kind of in my bubble about like my music right now. It's really weird, but I will shout out the producer Caleb Faulkner for Outside, and also J Rob. I used to go like not used to, but like for a lot of my music, I went to House of J Rob, his studio, and I love it there. And then yeah, I really haven't worked with a lot of people. I probably should, switch that up
Yeah. Well,
sometime soon.
again, eventually, that's the thing. I think that's the great thing about music in general is that the opportunities are always there. You know what I mean? You never
Yeah.
know who you'll meet and eventually collaborate with down the line. But even to have a couple people, helping you and just kind of giving you that second perspective, I think is super super important too.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned earlier that you are a teacher as well, so that kind of leads
Hmm.
me into my next question, which would be balancing music with everything else you got going on in life. And this is obviously something that
Hmm.
everybody deals with. So
Yeah.
for you, like, how does that look? Do you already know per week, like, when you're going to delegate time to work on music? Or is it just kind
Mm.
of, you just kind of make time when you have time? How does that work for you?
I would say it's a little bit of both. It definitely depends on what I'm dealing with during that time. So if I would say I just bought a new car the other day. So like during that time period, I'm like focusing on like 15 different things. So as far as like music, I would just, play beats whenever I could. And I did go to the studio. But any other time, I try to like delegate like time when I get home. Even riding in the car, I just play beats all the way home and write. If something comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it
Mm,
doesn't. Like I said earlier, I don't really force anything. I just want it to come out how I hear it, how I see it, and organically. Like, I don't want to like rush.
Yeah.
That's the word. I don't rush anything. I just let it come to me and write it down.
Yeah. Has to be a natural process all the way through. Yeah. Definitely feel that one. And kind of going off of that a little bit would be, you know, other than doing music, or maybe like, let's say you want to draw inspiration to create, what other hobbies do you have that you do? Could be other art forms, other forms of expression. Like, what do you do to kind of recharge and refuel to be able to create?
Yeah. So I love going to museums. Just the whole idea of nothing to something is always just so inspiring, whatever it is. So definitely going to museums and seeing other artists like and what they've created, and just knowing that like no project is the same. Like everything is so unique, and just relating that to my process. I love a good concert. A good concert will always inspire you. Like last year, I went to some really good concerts. I saw Victoria Monet. I saw Beyonce. I saw India Shawn, like just Mac Iris, like so many people that their music is like a part of my daily life. Seeing them on stage doing what they love, that's always inspiring.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy too that like every form of art is kind of has parallels, because like when I think about like an art museum, for example, they showcase different painters and things like that, and they all kind of have their own style and their own way of presenting their art. Same way for shows with musicians. It's like no stage is going to look the same. No performer is going to perform the same. You know what I mean? They all have their own tastes and their own things they want to tell, their own stories they want to tell. So it's cool to kind of just be able to do that. I haven't really been to many art museums. I went to the LA Art Museum last summer, and that was kind of cool. That was just randomly on a whim. We were just going, me and my friend were out there. We were just going and we just saw it. Like we were in the area and we were like, oh, let's go get tickets to this. They had like Picasso paintings, all kinds of cool stuff.
Wow.
But I was like, yeah, it kind of made me want to go to more art museums, because I was like, it's cool when you, I think it's cool when you don't have that skill too, because I'm like, I could never paint. I could never do this stuff. Literally. So you appreciate the art even more. You know what I mean? Like when you see something that's like, how the hell did they do that? You know what I mean? So
that's literally what I ask myself every time. I'm like, especially the stuff that is like so visually like breathtaking. It's like, how do you do that? I can't even draw a stick figure.
Yeah.
Like it's bad. So it definitely, like you said, makes you admire the art even more.
Exactly. And again, I think it's just another form of inspiration that you draw in, and then it's like, well, now I know how to create it my way, which is musically. How am I going to apply that to what I do musically? And then just hopefully it keeps going from there, and we can inspire other people with what we do.
Right.
And I just always thought that was cool about art in general, how it's kind of all connected to one another. But I do want to know, obviously, like, what do you think you're going to be dropping this year, if anything, or you just kind of don't know yet? You're just going to kind of keep working and see kind of where it goes, or do you have kind of something in mind that you want to put out this year? Could be visuals or doing shows or anything like that.
So there's a couple things I would say. I have this song sitting in my phone, and I like it, but I feel like I can do it better, but I don't know if I'm just doing too much. But I feel like that once I get it together, I want to drop it in the summertime. It's called In My Bag. It's another like cute little summer bop for everyone who's out here working hard. Other than that, I want to do an EP, but you know that I don't know. I found a good group of music that I'm currently writing to, so it's possible. I don't want to limit myself, but I also don't want to like what's the word? Like I don't want to sell myself short. And then this song that I just recorded last week, it's called By Your Side. I hope to release that So we'll see if I can make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely excited to see whatever you got dropping for sure. So I'll definitely be on the lookout, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be as well. So it's definitely exciting. And we're down to the last few questions here. These are ones I ask on every single episode to every guest that we have. And the first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
10 years ago. You said 10 or 15 years ago?
10 years. So 2014. Yeah, 2014.
So 10 years ago, I was 15. What did I tell myself? I would just tell myself to, like, keep going. Like, I was a very dedicated kid at that time in my life. So just giving myself that extra push so that I could keep going, so I didn't, like, stop in college. But, just tell her that you're doing amazing. Like, nobody's perfect. And that's really it.
Yeah. Always great advice to give, I'd say, for anyone. So
yeah.
And 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself in music and in life in general?
So I would hope that by 10 years from now, I'm more consistent with my music. Like, just like more, not like a machine, but just more of a process, more of a flow. Hopefully that's figured out in 10 years. And I hope in 10 years that I'm doing this music thing, being an artist, performing for a living. That would be ideal. That would be really, really nice. If not, it's God's will, but that would be nice. That's where I see myself in 10 years.
Yeah. I always think it's great to kind of look ahead, because it's just like you already know you have the goals in mind. You just keep working, you're eventually going to get there. Yeah. So it's like it's kind of cool to think about, what can become possible if you just keep at it. So that's definitely great. And do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
Yes. I was just telling myself this today. Give yourself grace. The world is a very hard and cold place, and you're not going to come in contact with people who love you as much as you love you. So you should be the one person in your life who gives yourself as much grace, as much mercy as you can, because as long as you're waking up and doing what you can, like, you're doing amazing, and don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Noah, I got to say once again, thank you so much for taking the time out to join me. Like I said, I'm excited for the new music, and we'll have to do this again soon, but I know we'll stay in touch, and I definitely appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 199. We'll be back this time next week. And next week, guys, is our 200th episode. Very excited for it. We got a cool guest next week, someone that I've been in touch with for a few years. But overall, if I forget to record this next week, I just want to say I really appreciate all you guys, everybody who supported this show for the last 4 years now at this point, for us to even get this far to 200 episodes. We don't have a ton of cool stuff planned this time around, but I do think it's cool to acknowledge milestones, and the fact that this show has gotten this far and we've been able to affect so many people is super awesome. So I might record something else next week kind of similar to this at the end of that episode, but if I forget, just want to let you guys know I always appreciate the support. And as always, you can donate support by clicking that support the podcast button on the platform that you're listening to the show on right now. But until next week, we'll see you then. And as always, thanks for listening, guys.